Most people think fat loss is just about eating less and exercising more. But here's the truth. It's not that simple. The biggest barrier standing between you and your fat loss is not willpower, it's insulin resistance. When insulin is always high, your body can't access stored fat for fuel, no matter how hard you diet or how many hours you spend in the gym. It's like trying to drive your car with the parking brake on. You push harder, but you don't move forward. But here's the good news. Insulin resistance is not a life sentence. You can fix it. And when you do, the body finally unlocks its fat-burning potential. In this talk, I'll explain what insulin resistance really is, how it quietly sabotages fat loss, and most importantly, the steps you can take today to reverse it. Because fat loss isn't just about looking better. It's about reclaiming your health, energy, and confidence. And it all begins with understanding insulin. Insulin is often misunderstood, but if there is one truth about fat loss that people need to know, it's this. Insulin is the master fat storage hormone. Whenever insulin levels are elevated, the body shifts into storage mode and fat burning comes to a complete halt. It doesn't matter how disciplined your diet is, how hard you exercise, or how much willpower you summon. If insulin remains high, your body is biochemically locked out of burning fat. To understand this, imagine your body as a hybrid car that can run on two fuels, sugar and fat. When insulin is high, the body is forced to run almost exclusively on sugar, while fat fuel remains locked away in storage. This happens because one of insulin's main jobs is to signal fat cells to store energy and hold on to it. In fact, insulin is so powerful in this role that even a small elevation is enough to shut down lipolysis, the process of breaking down stored fat for energy. That means every time you eat a carbohydrate-rich meal, snack frequently, or keep your body in a state of chronically elevated insulin, you are essentially flipping the switch to store and flipping off the switch to burn. Now, this doesn't mean insulin is bad. On the contrary, insulin is essential for life. Without it, nutrients wouldn't get into our cells and survival would be impossible. The problem arises when insulin is chronically elevated, as it is for so many people today. Our modern lifestyle, constant eating, high sugar diets, processed foods, stress, and lack of sleep creates a perfect storm for keeping insulin perpetually high. When this happens day after day, year after year, the body develops insulin resistance, and the fat-burning switch becomes permanently stuck in the off position. This is why so many people struggle with fat loss despite doing everything they think is right. They cut calories, they go to the gym, they try new diets, yet the weight hardly moves. It's not because they're lazy or weak, it's because their bodies are hormonally blocked from accessing stored fat. If insulin is elevated, the fat remains trapped inside the fat cells, no matter how badly you want to burn it. This is why someone can feel hungry and tired even when they have plenty of body fat to spare. The body simply can't tap into it as long as insulin stands guard at the door. Think of insulin as a security guard protecting fat stores. Its job is to keep that fat locked away. When insulin is high, the guard is standing tall and firm, saying, "No access allowed." Only when insulin levels drop does the guard step aside and allow fat to be released and burned as energy. This is the state we want to achieve if fat loss is the goal. So the real question is not, how do I burn more calories? But how do I lower insulin so my body can burn fat again? Once insulin levels come down, fat burning resumes naturally, often without the constant hunger and fatigue that come with conventional dieting. This is why strategies like reducing refined carbs, spacing out meals instead of snacking all day, prioritizing quality sleep, and managing stress are so powerful. They all work through the same mechanism of lowering insulin. With understanding insulin's role changes the entire perspective on fat loss. It removes the blame from willpower and places the focus where it belongs, on hormones. Fat loss is not a math problem of calories in and calories out. It is a hormonal state, and the most important hormone in that equation is insulin. If insulin is high, fat loss is off. If insulin is low, fat loss is on. Once you grasp this, you no longer chase fad diets or punish yourself with endless cardio. Instead, you learn how to work with your body's biology, not against it. Fat loss, then, is not just about eating less. It's about unlocking your ability to burn what you already have stored. And that begins with mastering insulin. Insulin resistance is one of the most powerful yet overlooked reasons why people struggle to lose weight. It is not simply about eating too much or moving too little. The real barrier is that insulin resistance locks fat inside your cells and makes weight loss feel almost impossible no matter how disciplined you try to be. To understand this, think about insulin's normal role in the body. Insulin acts like a key, opening the doors of your cells so that nutrients, especially glucose, can enter. In a healthy state, this system works smoothly. You eat a meal, insulin rises, and glucose enters your cells, and the body stores a little energy for later while still allowing access to fat stores when needed. But in insulin resistance, those doors don't open properly anymore. The cells stop responding to insulin signal, and the body compensates by producing even more insulin. This is where the real problem begins. High insulin becomes chronic, and when insulin is elevated all the time, fat cells are commanded to store and to hold on to energy. In this state, fat cells don't willingly release their contents for fuel. Even though your body is carrying plenty of fat, it cannot access it effectively. It's like sitting in a house filled with food, but finding every cupboard locked shut. You are surrounded by energy, yet you feel constantly hungry and tired. That is the daily reality for someone with insulin resistance. This is also why people with insulin resistance often feel trapped in a cycle of constant cravings. The body can't tap into fat for steady energy, so it demands quick fixes from sugar and carbs. The more carbs you eat, the higher your insulin goes, and the cycle repeats itself. Fat storage increases, but fat burning stays switched off. Over time, the fat cells themselves can even become inflamed and resistant, making it harder than ever to lose weight. It is not a matter of willpower, it's a matter of hormones fighting against you. Another way to picture it is like a traffic jam. In a normal situation, energy flows in and out of fat cells smoothly, just like cars moving through green lights. But when insulin resistance develops, it's as if every intersection is blocked. The fat gets trapped inside the cells and energy flow grinds to a halt. You can be eating less, exercising more, and doing everything right, yet the body refuses to dip into fat stores for energy. This explains why so many people feel stuck and discouraged, thinking they are broken or destined to stay overweight forever. The truth is, it's not their fault. The fat is simply locked away by insulin resistance. The encouraging news is that insulin resistance can be improved and even reversed. When you take steps to lower insulin and restore insulin sensitivity, those locked doors begin to open again. Fat cells can finally release their stored energy, and the body shifts back into fat-burning mode. This doesn't just lead to weight loss, it restores metabolic flexibility, the ability to switch between burning sugar and fat depending on what the body needs. People often describe this transition as feeling like a fog has lifted. They have steady energy, fewer cravings, and finally see the fat coming off after years of struggle. It is important to realize that fixing insulin resistance is not a quick fix, but it is a powerful fix. Small lifestyle changes, reducing refined carbohydrates, avoiding constant snacking, moving more throughout the day, getting quality sleep, and managing stress, create an environment where insulin can finally calm down. As insulin levels normalize, the fat that was once locked away begins to flow out, and the body can finally do what it was designed to do, use stored fat for fuel. Weight loss is not about punishing yourself with fewer calories and longer workouts. It's about unlocking your biology, and the lock is insulin resistance. When you focus on lowering insulin and restoring sensitivity, you stop fighting against your body and start working with it. That is the key to making weight loss possible again. When most people want to lose weight, the first advice they hear is to cut calories. Eat less, move more. That's the standard formula. At first, it might even seem to work. The scale drops a little, the clothes fit better, and motivation rises. But for so many, this progress stalls quickly, and despite working harder and eating less, the fat just won't budge. The truth is, cutting calories without fixing insulin is like swimming against the current. You push harder, but you never really move forward. Here's why. The body doesn't see calorie restriction the way we do. It doesn't think in terms of diet or weight loss. Instead, what the body interprets a sharp drop in calories as a potential threat, a sign of famine. In response, metabolism slows down, hunger hormones surge, and energy levels drop. This is why people often feel tired, irritable, and constantly hungry when they're simply eating less. But the deeper problem is this: if insulin is still elevated, the body cannot access its stored fat to make up for the calorie deficit. The fuel is there, but it's locked away. So what happens? You eat less, your body gets less fuel from food, and because insulin is blocking fat burning, your body begins breaking down muscle instead. Muscle is easier to sacrifice when fat is locked away. This is one of the cruel ironies of calorie restriction with high insulin. You lose muscle, not fat. And as muscle mass decreases, metabolism slows even further, making long-term fat loss harder than ever. It's like a vicious cycle. The harder you push, the more resistance you face, and the less progress you make. Think of it like trying to row upstream against a strong current. Every stroke feels exhausting, and no matter how hard you work, you make little to no progress. The current, in this analogy, is insulin. When insulin is high, it pushes back against your efforts, trapping fat in storage and leaving you stranded. Only when you turn around and work with the current, that is, lower insulin, do you finally move forward with ease. Fat loss becomes something the body does naturally instead of something you have to fight for. This explains why so many diets fail in the long run. It's not that people aren't disciplined enough. It's that they're following the wrong approach. They're focusing on calories while ignoring hormones. When insulin remains high, calorie restriction becomes a battle of willpower against biology. And biology always wins. That's why people eventually give in, regain the weight, and often add even more fat than before. Now, imagine approaching weight loss differently. Instead of focusing purely on calories, you focus on insulin. You reduce the foods and habits that spike it, frequent snacking, sugary foods, refined carbs, and you create space for insulin to fall. When insulin drops, fat cells finally release their stored energy. Suddenly, your body has access to the fuel it's been holding on to all along. You don't have to fight hunger constantly because your body is feeding itself from your own fat stores. You don't feel drained because your energy supply is steady. And most importantly, the fat you lose is real fat, not just muscle and water weight. Cutting calories without fixing insulin is like trying to outsmart your body. You may win for a short while, but you'll eventually lose. Lowering insulin, however, works with your body. It opens the doors to fat burning, protects your muscle, and restores your metabolism. Once insulin is addressed, eating fewer calories is no longer a struggle. It becomes a natural side effect of feeling satisfied on less food because your body is finally burning what it already has. So the lesson is simple: fat loss is not about suffering through hunger and endless restriction. It's about unlocking your body's ability to burn fat, and that requires lowering insulin first. Once you do that, you stop swimming against the current and finally begin to move downstream with the flow toward the results you've been working so hard for. Lowering insulin is the single most important step for unlocking fat burning, and it doesn't require extreme diets or punishing exercise routines. It requires learning how to live in a way that brings insulin down naturally, giving your body the freedom to use its own fat as fuel. The 4 pillars of this process are diet, movement, sleep, and stress control. When you bring these areas into alignment, insulin calms down, fat burning switches on, and weight loss becomes far less of a struggle. Diet is the most direct way to influence insulin. Every time you eat, insulin responds, but not all foods have the same effect. Refined carbohydrates and sugars spike insulin the highest, and when eaten frequently, they keep insulin elevated almost constantly. By reducing or removing these foods and replacing them with nutrient-dense proteins, healthy fats, and fiber-rich vegetables, you allow insulin levels to fall between meals. This is why low-carb and whole food diets are so effective for fat loss. They don't just reduce calories, they lower the very hormone that locks fat away. Even something as simple as cutting out snacks and allowing longer gaps between meals can make a dramatic difference, because insulin finally has a chance to come down. Movement is the second pillar. Exercise isn't just about burning calories. It is a powerful tool for improving insulin sensitivity. When you move your muscles, they become hungrier for glucose, and they can absorb it with far less help from insulin. This means your body needs less insulin overall, lowering the barrier to fat burning. You don't have to run marathons or live in the gym to see results. Even regular walking, resistance training, or short bursts of activity throughout the day can shift the body toward a more insulin-sensitive state. Movement essentially teaches your body to use energy more efficiently, and this lowers the hormonal roadblocks to fat loss. The third pillar is sleep. Many people overlook it, but poor sleep is one of the fastest ways to disrupt insulin sensitivity. Just a single night of short or restless sleep can raise insulin and increase cravings the next day. Chronic sleep deprivation makes it nearly impossible to keep insulin stable no matter how well you eat or exercise. On the other hand, consistent, quality sleep restores hormone balance, reduces hunger signals, and helps the body regulate blood sugar more effectively. Prioritizing sleep is not a luxury, it's a foundation for unlocking fat burning. Finally, stress control plays a critical role. When you are under stress, your body releases cortisol, a hormone that prepares you for fight or flight. While helpful in short bursts, chronic stress keeps cortisol elevated, and cortisol works hand in hand with insulin to promote fat storage. High stress often drives emotional eating, poor sleep, and less movement, which compounds the problem. By managing stress through practices like mindfulness, deep breathing, prayer, journaling, or simply making time for relaxation and connection, you help calm the hormonal storm. Lower cortisol means lower insulin, and lower insulin means fat is unlocked. These four pillars, diet, movement, sleep, and stress, are not quick fixes. They are long-term strategies for reshaping your metabolism. When you approach them consistently, insulin resistance begins to reverse. The fat that was once locked away becomes available for energy, cravings diminish, and weight loss feels less like a battle and more like a natural process. What's more, the benefits extend far beyond the scale. Lower insulin improves energy, mood, and overall health, reducing the risk of diabetes, heart disease, and other chronic conditions. When you realize how interconnected these pillars are, the path becomes clear. Eating in a way that keeps insulin low, moving your body daily, protecting your sleep, and managing stress all work together to unlock fat burning. This isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Each step you take to lower insulin is a step toward freedom from cravings, freedom from endless dieting, and freedom from the weight that has been holding you back. By mastering these simple but powerful lifestyle shifts, you give your body permission to do what it was designed to do: burn fat, restore balance, and thrive. Fixing insulin resistance is often framed as a strategy for weight loss, but the truth is much bigger than that. Yes, reversing insulin resistance unlocks fat burning and helps shed excess weight, but its impact extends far beyond the number on the scale. When you improve insulin sensitivity, you are transforming the way your entire body works. It's about restoring energy, extending longevity, and preventing the diseases that steal vitality and independence. Fat loss is just the surface benefit. What lies beneath is the foundation of lasting health. One of the first things people notice when they begin to fix insulin resistance is a surge in energy. Instead of relying on quick sugar fixes and constant snacking, the body becomes capable of tapping into fat stores for fuel. Fat is a steady, abundant source of energy, and when insulin resistance no longer blocks access to it, people describe feeling lighter, clearer, and more focused throughout the day. The roller coaster of energy highs and crashes begins to smooth out. Morning fatigue eases, afternoon slumps diminish, and mental clarity improves. This is because the brain and body are finally receiving a consistent stream of fuel, not the erratic spikes and drops caused by unstable blood sugar. But the benefits don't stop with daily energy. Insulin resistance sits at the root of many chronic diseases, and fixing it addresses the problem at its source. Type 2 diabetes, for example, is essentially the advanced state of insulin resistance. Heart disease, fatty liver disease, polycystic ovary syndrome, even certain cancers are all connected to chronically elevated insulin. When insulin is high for years, the damage spreads across nearly every system in the body. Blood vessels become stiff and inflamed, organs accumulate fat, hormones fall out of balance, and the immune system weakens. By restoring insulin sensitivity, you cut off the fuel line to these conditions and give your body a chance to repair. It's not just prevention, it's often reversal of early disease states. Longevity is also profoundly tied to insulin. People with better insulin sensitivity consistently live longer, healthier lives. High insulin accelerates aging at the cellular level by promoting inflammation and oxidative stress, while low, stable insulin supports repair and resilience. When insulin is controlled, the body spends more time in states of renewal, such as autophagy, where damaged cells are cleared out and replaced. This slows the biological clock. Fixing insulin resistance, then, is not about vanity. It's about adding quality years to life and life to years. It means staying active, sharp, and independent far longer than those who ignore this silent threat. There's also an emotional and mental freedom that comes with repairing insulin resistance. The constant cravings, the uncontrollable hunger, the guilt of overeating, all of it begins to fade. Food no longer controls you because your body is no longer screaming for quick energy. With stable blood sugar and steady access to fat fuel, your mood stabilizes, your confidence grows, and the mental burden of dieting disappears. This psychological shift is just as valuable as the physical transformation. It is important to understand that fixing insulin resistance is not about perfection. It is about progress, small, consistent choices that lower insulin and restore balance. Eating in a way that minimizes spikes, moving your body regularly, sleeping deeply, and managing stress are not just fat loss tools, they are life-preserving habits. Each one reduces the strain on your metabolism and builds resilience against disease. So when you think about insulin resistance, don't limit your perspective to fat loss alone. Yes, losing weight is often the first visible reward, but the deeper gift is health. Fixing insulin resistance means you regain energy that lasts, protect yourself from the most common killers of our time, and extend your life in both years and quality. It is about reclaiming control of your body, not for a season, but for the rest of your life. When insulin works as it should, your body works as it should, and that is the true victory.